Welcome back. Today we have an extra special treat for everybody. My guest today is a former chef. She is a plant lover. She is a forager. She is a cannabis advocate and a beer connoisseur. Of course, she is a mom. She has been featured in big-time publications such as Maxim. My guest today, the beer mama, Ashlee Mclaughlin. What's up, Ashlee?
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to come on the show.
Yeah, I like to yap, so it works out.
Couple of yappers.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a couple of yappers here today, baby. Giddy up. Giddy up. We like that. And it was really cool to notice your platform and to see what you're doing, the beer mama. Just for my audience, give them maybe the quick and dirty of how you became the beer mama.
So to distill it all down, the beer mama is a completely accidental organism of its own. Years ago, I don't want to age myself, but a long time ago, like well over a decade ago, Instagram was still new. I had just moved home to Maine with my daughter, who was somewhere around like 1 at the time. And I was working as a licensed massage therapist, but it just paid the bills. It's just what I liked to do. And craft beer had really started taking off around the state and in other areas. And I'd always really loved great beer and been really into it. And so I started to really immerse myself in it. And I got like obsessed. I don't casually enjoy things. I go all the way. There's no half-assing. It's whole-assing only. So I got super obsessed with it. And my friends and family were basically like, please shut all the way up about yeast, about hops, about fermentation, just any of it. And so I was like, fine, I'll tell the internet. So the whole platform kind of got started with me coming home, and I would crack a beer. I would run a bathtub after my kiddo went to bed, and I would sit and sip on my beer and just take these really detailed notes. And then I started to do reviews and post them. So it was just like, just like a blonde with a beer, like a selfie, but then in the caption it would be, these very detailed breakdowns of the beer. And then at some point it just kind of took off. I got reposted by a larger beer account at the time, and I hit like 10,000 really quickly after that. And then I was like, oh, I guess people like what I'm doing, so I'm not going to change anything. And the rest, I guess, is history. The platform has evolved since then and matured with me, with my audience, because that was over 10 years ago now. But now it's become this really awesome vehicle for community connection, and it also gives me a lot of opportunities to go do like very cool things.
First, I want to ask, like, what are some of those cool things and the opportunities that you get to go do?
I've gotten to do a lot of travel. I've gotten featured in like Maxim. I'm able to meet a lot of people and go to a lot of events where I'm able to have doors open up for me that maybe weren't open before. And it's allowed me to really build this incredible network of people. Like, I got a guy for everything now. And it's pretty amazing.
Having a guy is so important. Like you say, you got a guy for everything, and that that infrastructure, the internal infrastructure that you have is vital. And when you do this type of work, it's a benefit. It's a big benefit that comes with it, right?
Yes.
And what's a cool thing about Maine, I feel like, is people like you do need a guy for everything. You need a plow guy. You need this guy to come help you with build a house and to do that. It's like I'm starting to get those people together as well.
Yeah.
What being the like with beer, and so you just really enjoyed beer, and you would go out, like there's a lot. I think I've read about that. It started at a place where you were like getting your chalice, right? Like you get your chalice.
Yeah. So I don't know that the beer mama itself would have become a thing if a beer bar in Portland called Novari Res did not exist. So before I had my daughter, I was not 21 yet, but it was a long time ago, so it's fine. I went into this place called Novari Res, and they're consistently rated one of the best beer bars in the world. It's like the amount of different beer you have access to is truly incredible. And there you can do your chalice list where you drink 235 different beers on the list. You essentially are trying beer from all over the world that's all different styles. And the first time I went in there, though, they were like, what do you like? And my exposure to beer, as far as good beer at the time, was like Anchor Steam, and like some Victory beer, which is based in Pennsylvania. And I just selected this beer called Golden Drock. And it was this rich, dark, like flavorful ale. And it was just like the scene in Ratatouille when he's eating the food and the fireworks are going off and there's like the colors. I was just like, it's like, holy cow, this is what beer can be. This is what beer is. Oh my God. So after that, I left the state for a little bit. And then when I moved back, I started that chalice list because I was like, I'm getting so into beer. It's so interesting. There's so many different kinds. So I'll do this.
Were you 21 when you came back?
What's that?
Were you 21 when you came back?
I was 22 or 23.
It's so funny. It's like I was also that way. I had my brother's ID since I was like, 15. So I was like buying beers for the people who were older than me. And when I was, when I went to college, I was just, the guy who bought beers for everybody. Yeah. I was going to bars and I just like remember, and maybe this was not good. I don't know, but it definitely, I was seeking stuff like that. I would seek stuff like, oh, I'm going to go and try this, these different beers. Or there was this place in Mission Hill called the Penguin Pizza. And they did that same thing, the beer chalice.
Yeah.
I never did the challenge, but it was always like, I was always intrigued by that.
It took a long time. The challenge took a long time, but
do you have like a mug? Is it still up there and they keep it there for you?
Yes, I do. It lives in its own cubby and it's just a really big, heavy cup, but it's there whenever I want it. So, that's how I kind of really started to get familiar with styles, was moving through that chalice list. And then while I was still working as a massage therapist, I would park purposely so that Novare was halfway between my car and work. And every day after work, I would stop and I would just check something off the chalice list. I would try a different beer and then I would continue on my way home. And then while I was doing that, that's when I started to really network the bartenders, the brewers, the people working in the industry as well, knowing at that time I eventually wanted to be more involved in the industry.
What was your... because this is something that I would love. Like maybe this is something that I should have done because I don't know. I don't like beer. I don't like the taste of it. Like, to be honest, I don't really like the taste of alcohol at all. It's the reason. It's the reason why I don't drink.
Yeah.
Also because I don't love the feeling of like the next day and having to recover from that.
No one likes to be hungover.
Right. Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's terrible, right? And so but I to the point where I don't want to do it. I don't even want to partake in it because I don't like that feeling so much. And also the taste, but I do respect and understand that people likely do, love and appreciate the taste of some of these beers. And and there have been beers that I've tasted that I'm like, oh, like, because everyone still wants, will still ask me, oh, take a sip of this. What do you think? Because they want me to, they want me to like it, right? They want me to like it. They want that camaraderie. And I always will, take a sip or whatever. And I'm always like, oh man, I don't like that. So what are your favorite types of styles of beers? And like what, how many different styles of beers are there? I know there's the sours and there's, there's an IPA and there's, Pilsners and stuff like that. But I think it's way more robust, right?
Yes, it is. Yes and no. Yes and no. So in the same way that cannabis can kind of be separated by like sativa and indica and hybrid, beer is pretty similar. You can very generally put everything under two umbrellas, which is ales or lagers, which is two different kinds of yeasts that ferment at two different temperatures. Lager comes from a German word meaning to store, and it's a yeast that needs a lot longer to work. So you're talking your fermentation time with a lager is, 4 to 6 weeks at a minimum if you really want a great product. And then ales, they work quicker. The yeast works quicker. It likes to ferment at warmer temperatures, and your turnaround is faster as well. So like a lager is an umbrella term. So you have a pilsner. That's a lager. A lager is a pilsner is a lager, So you have these two different umbrellas. And then within that, you have all of the different interpretations. So a sour would be a lager. A sour is an ale, but it's a sort of ale.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's like a million different kinds out there, really. And especially in like the post-craft beer boom era, people have gotten pretty creative and a little weird with their styles. You know, you can find things with lactose in it. You can find things that have been brewed with terpenes as well, because hops and cannabis are plant cousins. So there's a lot of crossover there. I mean, people put anything in beer these days. So
you see so much more, you know, like in all the microbreweries, and I think I love that scene. I love how, you know, people have been able to do that. You know, small businesses have risen up. You know, I'm friends with the gentleman who owns Liar's Bench in Portsmouth.
Oh yeah,
Deglin, he's awesome, and like to see him grow that business and to see him do, it's like, that's amazing. You know, I love that. I think that's
what they do there too.
Yeah, hell yeah. And they just opened up a new, you know, like expanded, you know, a little while ago. So it's like, it's cool to see that happen, and for people locally to take a little bit of the market share from Bud Light and Miller Lite and Coors Light. You know, that started to happen, I think, like when I was in college, which was like 2000 and, you know, 2008, you know, maybe like I said before that, because it happened when you were.
I would say that, like, officially we started to really see craft beer take off, probably like 2010, 2011, I think, in northern New England is really when we saw all of these smaller breweries really start to pop up and establish themselves as like kind of like pillars of the neighborhood. Prior to that, I think more populous areas definitely had the craft brewery situation going, but, you know, our population is so much thinner up here too. New Hampshire only has a hair over 600,000 people. Maine has about 1.2 million year-round residents. So it always takes us a little longer to get to the trends in northern New England.
For sure. What it really does. So what's the weirdest beer that because you said there's been some weird ones out there. What's lactose? That sounds pretty funky.
I mean, if you're not tolerant to it, it gets real weird. Yeah, but you know, like there was a beer, I want to say Rogue Brewing out in Oregon did it, where they harvested yeast out of like a guy's beard and then propagated the yeast and then made a beer with it.
Whoa.
Yeah, there was like some brewery, I don't remember where they're based out of, that did like vaginal yeast, which was like, they propagated that and then brewed with it. It's like, I mean, it's yeast. Yeast is everywhere. Of course, yeah. You know? Yeah. So, but yeah, people, I don't know. I think that they just smoked a huge blunt and were like, what's the weirdest place we can get yeast from, man?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, and that, right, with everything expanding like that, like everyone's just throwing everything against the wall and trying to figure out what tastes good and figure out, oh, we can do this. Like we can, you know, because I obviously like started, like the blueberry beers were like the first beers that were like, oh, you can do like something different here. There can be like different things in these beers. Like the Sea Dog blueberry, right? Like everyone, that was like the one of the beers that I remember in college that we were like was a special beer that if we could, you know, we would get it if we'd go out or something. And what about cider? What's your take on cider? How was that? That's what I drank. I used to, because I didn't like the taste of beer that much. I used to drink a lot of like Magner's cider.
I'm not a big cider girly, to be honest. I'm always somebody seeking like bitter and savory and salty over sweet flavors. So I tend to stray away from some ciders. However, we do have a lot of people, especially in New England, that are producing some really beautiful, tart, dry, true ciders. So they're not super saccharine, like alcoholic apple juice. They're funky, they're dry, they're nuanced. So there are some really cool ones out there. There's a guy called Whaleback Cider, and he's based somewhere in Maine. And he does one that's like, I think there's some wild yeast in it because it's like tart and funky and like a little barnyardy, but in the best way possible. So there are some people out there doing really cool stuff with cider now. But yeah, it's not, my mom's a cider girl. She's like big on her Down East cider. She just wants her can of like sweet apple juice with a little alcohol in it.
Right. Yeah. The Down East are so sweet. And like the Angry Orchards are so sweet. Like, I used to do Magners on ice, you know, that was still sweet. Don't get me wrong.
That pear flavor it's pretty good.
The pear is pretty good, you know. I just whatever. That's what I used to drink, and but and I do like sweet stuff. Usually, I love savory stuff too, but I'm a sweet guy. You know, I'm a sweet tooth.
Yeah.
And I picked up some cannolis at like 8:30 this morning. You know, didn't eat them, but like it's just like, oh, that's some.
I wouldn't judge you if you did.
Well, yeah, right. That's the thing. There's a lot of people in there slamming breakfast, like. I was like, oh man, I don't know if this is the best way to start your day, but I used to, you know, I've done it, and you know, we'll do it again in my life, so I'm not judging. The beer scene seems like it's it's still expanding? Is that or is it kind of hit a plateau, or where is it at current, and where do you like see it going?
The American craft beer industry overall is in a kind of a really interesting place right now. We're seeing a lot of brewery closures. We're seeing a lot of rising costs, especially with tariffs that are coming in as well, because that's affecting the cost of imported grain and soon steel and aluminum too. So craft beer everyone likes to talk about the bubble bursting in like 2016. Everyone's like, the bubble's gonna burst. And we're kind of finally there. We're seeing breweries that they can't just get by on being the community spot anymore if they're not really putting out great product and hitting every pillar of their business, their hospitality, their product, their sense of community, all of that, then they're just not lasting. So craft beer is kind of in a weird spot at this point in time. I think we're going to see a lot of breweries disappear before we see it stabilize some.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens with the tariffs and where that goes. I think that it like you said, there's definitely gonna be something with steel. That one's definitely coming, and we'll see about the grain stuff, but it could have effect, and I hope that I do hope that it doesn't affect small business in a negative way.
Unfortunately, it's even if you're a small brewery, even 3 cents more per aluminum can, if you're going through 2,000 cans per canning run, that all really adds up in a business where your margins are already quite slim.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my whole thing. My whole thing about that is I would just want to make it easier for everyday regular people to exist and to be successful, in this country. That's the only thing that I want.
Mm-hmm.
So have a lot of breweries, a lot start up, especially up in Portland in that area. A lot start and then fail, and then you're starting to see ones that are really starting to shine to the top. You're saying, and kind of cream of the crop, and you're starting to see the ones that rise that incorporate the community and have the good beer and also incorporate good food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Portland is interesting because I think Portland is almost its own micro economy. I think a lot of Maine is like that. To be fair, just because how Mainers are overall at supporting their local businesses, and then we have such fluctuations with tourism and things like that too. We've got the standards that have been around forever. Allagash is love them so much. It's I always joke that they're the mothership. I could live off their cool ship red. It's sipping a summer breeze. It's so good. So you've got people like that, and then we've seen a few drop away over the years, and then we're really seeing now what the product of having good business sense on top of already being able to have a good product and appeal to everyone is doing. So, for example, Lone Pine started out really small. Their tasting room when they first started, it was sticky. It was basement couches. The beer was good, but basement couches. They were fermenting in plastic at first, and now they've just merged with Lord Hobo out of Massachusetts to have a greater distribution footprint. So now I think it's really if they're not playing the capitalism game, then it gets really hard, because it's really tough to rely year round strictly on your hyper local business.
Right. So you're a fan of Lone Pine.
I really like their OJ. And years ago, they did a beer called Tessellation with mosaic hops, and they added guava to it. And I think they only did one run of this, and it still haunts me.
That they only did one run?
Yeah, I loved it.
Do you know any of the team members over there?
I do, but at the size they are too, adding guava puree to a bazillion cans of an already expensive to make IPA is probably not something they're going to greenlight.
Right. Okay.
Maybe if I appeal really nicely.
I might have pull. So my wife, her cousin, his name's Eric Manahan, and he's I believe he's one of the head brewers over there.
Oh,
he's
nice.
very involved. He's worked there for for 5 or 6, 7 years or so. He's been involved for a while, and so I think they crush it. So I was happy for you to hear them say that.
They've killed it. They've really killed that.
So I remember that it was across from the fermentation place, that one of their tap rooms, right?
Yeah, they did a great job. When they first came on the market, their Portland Pale was not something I wanted to drink. And then they did such a good job just hitting the ground running once they had their space and dialing in all of their like procedures and stuff, and then the quality just like really skyrocketed. And they're great with their consistency, which is super important. And like their OJ, which is one of their IPAs, you can find all over the place, and it's just a really good drinkable beer. It has like that kind of like mass appeal. And again, I just think that the team behind it has really good business sense, which is a huge part of their success. Like, you can make the best beer in the world, but if you're a bad business person.
Yeah, it's like really everything. I think about this a lot, like how many good ideas and things that are really wonderful that have never made it out because people didn't have good business sense. You know, it's so necessary to bring products to market, and there's just so much stuff that's out of your control, and like you just got to be able to weather with the punches and hit things in the right, you know, like you said, timing is, you know, your story, right? Timing is everything. You know, you need to be in the right place at the right time, and then that's when opportunity strikes, and there's all this opportunity around us all the time, but we need to know when to go towards it, and like timing is everything.
I think that also a lot of people who have entrepreneurial spirit, especially when it comes to like consumables like beer and stuff, the idea is there and they can make a great product, but the how, they have the big picture, but like it's like the steps that people tend to get lost in, and it's really overwhelming. And so I think a lot of people just at that point kind of hit the wall and they give up. And the difference is when somebody figures out how to push past that, and that's when they start really like succeeding.
Yeah, the only way is through.
Yeah, pretty much.
You got to go through it,
The only way to get through the shit show is just to keep going.
Yeah, literally. Exactly, literally. I think about that so much, you know, because it's, if you do, you know, there's shortcuts, and I don't want to call them shortcuts, but there's paths to those success, and the path will open up. But to go through, you need to go through it for those paths to show themselves and present themselves. And that's like probably like the biggest theme on this show, is that like the only way is through. You got to show up for it. You got to be a part of it. You got to do it. You got to do the work. What would you say, like, you know, because this is a tough thing, like where, you know, even I, you know, somebody who you know, has a cannabis product and you know, is a part of the industry in some fashion, you know, I think about it a lot. Like, you know, I'm a trained pharmacist. That's what my degree's in, and like I want to promote healthy things, and you know, I know that cannabis has helped a lot of people, you know, me personally, and you know, tons of people that I've talked to. But at the same time, I think that it obviously can be negative too. And you know, alcohol. I stopped drinking alcohol not because I had a problem with it. You know, there's plenty of things that I can have a problem with, but luckily, whatever, alcohol wasn't one of those. But I didn't like the taste, and I didn't like the way it made me feel in the morning. And I have felt better since like taking it out of my life. I do get envious sometimes, like of the camaraderie that gets to go with it. You know, that some people are not necessarily envious of it, because I can achieve that as well with those people, and I don't need to be drinking. But it's like almost like a you know, you're in like a hot tub and after skiing, and people are, you know, having a beer, and it's like, oh, that's a cool thing. But then I'm always like, oh, I don't. Why would I think that way? You know, before I might have drank a beer, I might have had some beers, and I think a lot of people are like that, where they just go with the habit of things, because it's a habit and it's so socially around us and socially acceptable that we do it, and it becomes a part of our culture. But I'm curious, like, as somebody who's in it, you know, you're in it, like, you know, how have you been able to like keep yourself safe and keep yourself, you know, and also like, what's the, you know, you're a mom, you're the beer mama. I'm a newer dad. So I'm always thinking about these things, and I'm curious as to somebody who has a lot more experience than me.
Yeah, I think that's we need a whole TED Talk just for this. Yes, it is difficult to find balance, and so I think that we need to rewind. And like, first of all, it's important to acknowledge that alcohol is one of the deadliest and most widely available of the substances out there, and that is something I do keep in the back of my mind all the time. It kills people. It is a catalyst for crime. You know, it's not necessarily a good thing. However, as Americans, we can't get away from alcohol. culture. This country was literally founded over hushed conversations and beer in pubs.
We tried once, right?
Yeah, we tried once. It didn't go really well.
Yeah.
Actually, 3 people died when they first instituted prohibition in Maine. There was a riot, and 3 people died at City Hall.
Oh man, and I bet a lot more people died over during the Prohibition era because of alcohol being illegal. A lot of people.
So alcohol is super ingrained into our society, especially in New England, where we were a part of the triangle trade. So we were sending out fur, timber, and things like that, and we were receiving sugar and molasses in order to make rum. So northern New England specifically has literally been soaked in alcohol since it was New England. You used to be able to walk through Portland and pay a nickel and just fill up a cup with like a rum punch. So it is like we are literally have been soaked in alcohol. And you can't get away from that as a society. Some societies do not place a heavy importance on things like that. And as Americans who are descended from alcohol-loving Europeans, we have just always had that as part of our culture. And it's been so normalized over the years to binge drink in college, like get wasted, and like, oh, I blacked out last night. And those are such pitfalls to have it so normalized like that. And it's really, I think it's super, super harmful. I have a much different view on alcohol, I think because I lived overseas with my family when I was younger. And we lived in Italy. We lived in Sardinia, specifically, on an island called La Maddalena. And Italians have such a different approach to alcohol. If you're 10, 11, 12, you've got wine cut with water at family dinner. People make their own wine. It's all about sitting around and using that as a shared experience and bonding with people, but not getting drunk. You're not drinking to get drunk. You're drinking to enjoy time with your friends and family. And if that means a quarter of a glass, a half a glass, or a whole bottle, the end goal of it is never to get super drunk. And I think a lot of that carried over into adulthood for me. Not so much in college. Like, we all get after it a little bit at one point or another in school. But into adulthood, and especially once my daughter started to get older, I just realized that it was really important for her to see healthy habits towards alcohol being modeled in the home. And, for her to see that we can go to a brewery and people can enjoy themselves and its community, and you don't need to get drunk to have that experience. Or mom can have a beer or a glass of bourbon with dinner, and, like, that's it. And that's okay to only have one. And it's also okay to go months at a time without drinking or to be sober. I go back and forth with alcohol sometimes. Like, I love to have a glass of bourbon. I know I'm the beer mama, but I'm a big don't tell anyone. But yeah, I'm a big bourbon girl. But it's just so important to be able to step away from it too. And so my daughter's seen me go through periods where it's a couple months and I just don't feel like drinking. She's seen me go through periods where it's like I like to have a little splash of bourbon at the end of the day or a beer. And I just think it's just being shown that, she also grew up in breweries. I was working in craft beer directly in breweries and stuff through a good chunk of her childhood. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it is just like modeling those healthy habits. I wouldn't take her to situations where I knew people would get drunk. Like, she's never been in places where people are at like a party where someone's out of control, anything like that. And it's really just about modeling the example, because you cannot get away from alcohol in our society. It's just shoved into your face no matter where you go.
Yeah, like right to the point where somebody who vehemently knows that he has no interest in this substance still will be like, "Oh man, maybe it'd be cool to have a beer right now."
And then you're like, "Oh."
And then I'm like, "No, absolutely. Like, that's the worst thing that I could do for myself." But I think you make a great point in that alcohol, whether I think that it's from a pure health standpoint, I don't know if it like a physical health standpoint. I don't know if there's benefits to it. Like with cannabis, that I think that there's plenty of harm to cannabis and smoking and doing that and potentially, with sleep. And there's a lot that can be negative potentially, overuse, all of it. But documented, statistically significant, benefits that we do know about. Mm-hmm. With alcohol, physically, I don't know if that's the case. But with that being said, I think that the connection bit, and why I think places in like Europe and in Italy where this is a part of their culture in a different way, it's successful, is that it's a great tool for connectivity.
Yes.
to get people a little bit more comfortable and to connect and to love each other and to share story. And that's like in Russia, for instance, is how they deal with their issues is they just they get a bottle of vodka, they get fucked up, and and they cry and they yell at each other, and then the next day it's like good because we processed it, and that's how they do it. And so there's and they do it with their family, and there's connection to it. The problem I think in America is because we are so based on what you talked about, that capitalistic model of capitalizing on that and realizing that and knowing that this is a thing that people can be addicted to and will go towards because it's dopamine and serotonin inducing and more dopamine inducing, serotonin depleting, but you go to places where you're not supposed to be connecting with people necessarily, like where a bunch of people who are just looking for connection, with people are going to a bar with other people that are looking for the same thing, but they're not necessarily supposed to be connecting with one another. Yeah. Or they're just in a bad, because they're in a bad way or whatever. They're in a bad way, so they want to connect with somebody. They need to connect with somebody in a positive manner and go do some yoga and some of that stuff and some exercise. But instead they go and look for that connection in a bar, and it's with a stranger and somebody and then you just get this false sense of connection with people. And like I've seen people build like full relationships off of this, and then they realize when one of them stops drinking, like, oh, I actually have nothing in common with this person. I have nothing. I don't even agree with anything that they say. We were just drinking buddies, and we just were able that we just created that for each other. So I think that why it's so successful in other countries is that it does. There's a respect to it. There's a it's not hidden from the kids, like my parents didn't hide it from me, but I also like went down that path. Like I was more responsible with it, I felt like, than the kids that did get it hidden from them. I knew how to.
Yeah, my parents made it seem like my dad was on a submarine for a good chunk of my childhood, so he was underwater somewhere.
Cool submariner.
Yeah, you say cool now, but until you meet one, they're real weird people. They're great. They're great.
The weirdest
human. Weird.
They're the weirdest human being. I not the weirdest. They're a very different bunch, and I've been around a couple. I've been lucky enough to be around a couple of them, and like they have like
very smart, very odd,
very smart, very odd, engineer brained, and like to do that to be able to get your brain.
Be a real weirdo.
You have to be a special type of person. Yeah. And a weirdo is you can call it that. You can call it a weirdo.
I can say because I grew up in it. So
it's
said with love. We love them, but they're an odd bunch.
They're an odd bunch, and it's fun. It's so funny, I know 5 submariners like pretty intimately. Like they're my friends, and I've had these conversations. Maybe we'll have one on the show. Sometime.
You should.
Cannabis products are becoming more popular every day. Whether you're looking for the best night's sleep, trying to mitigate daily stress, or just trying to enjoy some laughter with friends, OG Cannabis is the store for you. OG Cannabis has an unbiased approach that is unique and simple. Unlike the competition, they don't sell their own manufactured products, but instead proudly showcase the best vendors across Maine. A dispensary like no other. Come and visit today at 18 American Way, Elliott, Maine. OG Cannabis. Oh, and don't forget to use my promo code, Dr. BeeWell. See you guys there. Giddy up.
But yeah, so my dad was underwater all the time. So it was my mom and my sister and I a lot. And my mom has never been a big drinker. I don't think I've ever seen this woman have more than a full, very weak cocktail or like Mike's Hard Lemonade in my life. And she always made it seem like this big, bad thing. And it was like so awesome and it should never touch it. So of course, what happened when I went to college?
Yeah, send it.
I was like, send it. I'm going to find out why this is so great if she didn't want me near it. Right. And then very quickly I was like, getting drunk isn't actually that cool.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people fall into that trap.
Yeah, they fall into the trap, and it's like I just remember I was always the mature guy who was, taking care of those people, taking care of my friends, making sure that they were safe, because they were putting themselves in super dangerous situations, or it's like they were completely blacked out and they're, 130 pounds, 140 pounds, whatever, completely blacked out, and they're in the middle of the city. I went to school in Boston. It's like, damn, dude, like this is this is
in the middle of the winter with no coat,
dude.
Yeah,
100%. Like one of my buddies who I would constantly take care of, and live with him for a couple of years. Like he one time in February, found himself outside of a bar and got picked up in an ambulance because he fell asleep on the bar and like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mostly that, I think about how many times that would have happened to him if I hadn't been in his life. It would have been, probably another 10 times.
Yep.
But whatever. He learned that lesson, and now he's a lot better with it now. Has a better relationship with it, and that's great. And but it can be very detrimental, and can when you go to college, you just have that like people want to party as much. But I partied a lot too. I just, for whatever reason, the drinking, I never like drank. Even to like, I probably only blacked out like 3 or 4 times in my 6 years of college, right? Yeah, right. And so like, I don't get me wrong, I've had my problem with other substances, and that's maybe another thing. I think I just never really liked alcohol, or I didn't like the battle that I had to go through like the next day.
It's brutal, yeah.
Because I'd always say, even my friends back then, I would be like, I'd wake up and be like, I'm not drinking tonight, and then they'd be like, oh, we'll ask you at 5. And then let's go. Okay,
send it.
Let's go have a party and let's have fun. And it's like, really, all I was looking to do was connect with people. I wanted to just be with my friends and wanted to have connection and have fun, which you can do in the absence of alcohol.
Yeah, it's like a party. Everyone's drinking, and where it's shoved down our face in the media that you're an American who goes to school and that's what you do. You have like these parties,
yep.
Especially if you're a millennial. We got that messaging was just jammed down our throats, I feel like, with like the classic like late 90s through early 2000s cinema that
old school
Euro Trip. They go and they get like wrecked on absinthe.
Yeah,
I love that movie, by the way. It's
Euro
so funny.
Trip. Yeah, Road Trip's even better.
Road Trip, yeah.
The
and so
OG.
we'd get this like shoved down our or like House Bunny, they have the party,
Yeah.
I love that movie too. It's so underrated.
It's very underrated. Yeah, all these Project X, all these that just like they glorified it to us,
You go to college, this is what you do. You get fucked up with your buddies, you have hangovers, you're like, I'm never drinking again, and it was just really jammed down our throats. And
I got a conspiracy theory right now that I just thought of. Like, the media is obviously controlled, right? The media is controlled. So like the people, they wanted, you can have a generation of people go to school and get educated and be super smart and come out and fight. And it's like, no, we're going to create this media to make them think that this school is about this. So when they go to school, they spend all this money. They're going to go there and they're going to be focused on drinking and doing all this and not actually getting their education and being smart so that they can advance themselves. So it's like the media was trying to, and whoever controls the media was trying to keep people down.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. But
we got some in the back.
Yeah.
We got some tinfoil.
Good. Okay, great. But, people are always like, the system is broken, the system is broken. The system's not broken. The system's doing exactly what the system is supposed to be doing. And that is part of it. Keeping people sick, addicted, seeking out substances and not seeking out plants over pills, all of that stuff. Like I think that's all part and parcel to what you just said.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. That is what people always say. The system is broken. The system's
not broken. The system is doing exactly what the system is supposed to be doing.
Right.
We're seeing it in action right now in our country.
Right. I constantly say that we need to like fix the system. We need to fix the system. That's what I try to say. We need to fix the system because the system, it's not broken. You're right. But then I say the system is broken. We need to fix it. But it's like, no, we need to fix the system. We just
need a new system.
We need a completely new system.
Yeah. Again, to put the tinfoil hat back on, this is a conversation that pops up a lot, usually over like blunts, but and I'm like, listen guys, so first of all, I have severe ADHD, and so people who are neurodivergent historically have very strong patterns of recognition. It's one of the reasons why we typically test with very high IQs, why we are very successful in creative fields, all of that stuff. And I like history a lot. So I say all the time, I'm like, you guys, we're not really a democracy. This is an empire. We are Rome. This is the fall. If you look at the pattern of every large empire in history, we're, 300, however many years in. This is around the time where shit gets real weird. It hits the fan. And this is when these systems that are in place are really starting to do their job. When people everyone's sick, they're unhappy, things aren't working, and yet they're being kept in these places by something that's not working. And alcohol is a big part of that. Marketing it to people is a big part of that. These big companies like Budweiser, very famously through the mid-century 1900s, stomped out every single small local brewery that was encouraging community, that was encouraging responsible consumption, all in favor of the messaging that men drink beer and real Americans have Budweiser and product placement where people are getting completely wrecked off of it. So it's all tied together. And I do think that alcohol is such a big part of keeping the status quo.
Yeah, keep people down, right? Like keep them sick, keep them drunk, keep them
sick, keep them
fat.
I mean, the British Navy very famously rationed their sailors a half a pint of rum per day and 1 full pint of rum on Sundays to keep the sailors happy.
Wow.
That's all it took. Also, like, who's drinking a full pint of rum? Like,
yeah, it's a lot.
That's a lot of rum.
It's a lot of rum, dude. It's a lot of rum, you know? And that's the things I couldn't even, like, hard alcohol, like, I can't even think about hard alcohol. Like,
I could probably drink a half a pint of bourbon. Not at once. But not because I like getting drunk. I just really enjoy good bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if I had, like, a pint available and I'm just, like, putting a little splash in my glass while I'm, like, cooking, before I know it, the pint's gone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I love to cook with wine.
Mm-hmm.
I cook with wine. I make a beef stew that's, like, outstanding. You know, I use a full bottle of wine, you know, sometimes even more. Because I do love the taste of it. So I do think that there's value in other ways too. And I'll use beer to cook sometimes too, you know, like, so I think there's value in other ways for sure. I do think it's like a lot of, you know, there's a lot of sugar, there's a lot of like health impacts that can come from drinking a lot. So like what, like, you know, I do think it's great with what you said. Like, I don't think anybody should be drinking every day. And I think that it's important to take time off, you know, like from alcohol, from cannabis. I know that they've tried to put some of those things like into society, like dry January, right? Like that's a thing. Sober October, you know, those are things now. And I think that these are good. I think this is a good thing. You know, I do wonder, because let's say my parents, my mom was an alcoholic. So like there was that, you know, so alcohol was around, but it was, you know, it was my brothers were 5 and 6 years older than me. So they were, you know, in high school and when I was in 7th grade, and like I looked up to them. So I was like, oh, like, what do we, you know, we got to drink. And my dad's family, you know, that was a part of it. You know, we're Polish, and so like that, you know, like the Russian thing, you know, so it's like Eastern European. They do like to bond over drinking and vodka and stuff. And so I was around it to where I did think that like it was just something I like almost had to do. You know, it was like something I had to do. It was just going to be a part of my life. I'm grateful that it's not, you know, and I'll see what it's like with my son. That's what I'm going to be so interested in, because it's like, well, he doesn't necessarily, he'll never see me drink, and he'll, you know, my wife will have that's the thing my wife's previous relationship, you know, she would, you know, the gentleman drank a lot, and by habit, you know, she ended up drinking more. You know, she would just have a couple of beers.
When you're around it all the time, you're like, oh, sure, I'll have one. Why not? And then before you know it, you're like, oh, my pants don't fit, and I've been drinking a whole lot, and I feel like shit all the time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. And people don't realize it. It's just it's such a habit. It's such a habit thing. And it's the same with like food, you know, like any type of thing that we can go. I'm really bad with food. Like right now I'm in a cycle of like, you know, every night, you know, I'm eating, you know, probably like 600, 700 calories of sweetness, maybe more, 1,000 calories of a sugary treat that I don't need.
I do the same thing with cheese, so
that's
my like emotional eating go-to.
Yeah, cheese. I love it. At least there's some protein in cheese, you know. At least at least you're getting that. But yeah, I just think that I wonder where, like, we should, you know, like, we need. I think a little less drinking would be good. I think that it just, or not even less, just like more responsible drinking.
Yeah.
You know, I would be good, but people are people like, so is that what you'd advocate for? Is just that like little less drinking?
It's just like, don't be a dumbass. Like, pay attention to yourself. You know, it is so easy to fall into the pattern of frequently drinking and relying on alcohol as a clutch, and being able to kind of overcome that requires a self-awareness that not everyone has or is willing to attain. For sure, because that self-awareness also comes with a lot of retrospection and having to admit certain things about yourself to yourself, and a lot of people don't want to do that. So you know, we're humans, we have free will. Like, I would hope that people have that ability and are able to approach things with that level of responsibility, but the reality is not everyone is. It's a chemical that hits everything in your brain that makes it want more. And if you're not willing to do the internal work to recognize when you're starting to lean on it, when it is calling out to you a little bit too much, then I think that's when people really start to fall into the trap of consistently drinking, it spiraling out of control, waking up with the anxiety, having a drink to get rid of the anxiety, and then like a few more drinks later because they still feel like shit from the day before. So I would love to see people who just are able to consume responsibly 100% of the time, but you're very well educated in chemistry and the brain, so for a lot of people that's just not a thing that's going to happen. They want the dopamine and their brain is going to crave it no matter what they do.
Yeah, it's funny because like it's like gives you, it's so like it gives you dopamine in the short term, right? Like it makes you happier, but it's ultimately a depressant, and it's gonna make everything worse. And
absolutely,
so it's like it's such a slippery slope. And,
it's short-term gain, long-term loss is really what you have with alcohol. And I know it's very ironic to have somebody called the beer mama saying these things, but it's
responsible, girl.
It's so well, thank you. But it's important. It's so important to think about when it's a substance that can be so potentially dangerous.
Yeah, right. It's so like because it is so it's so easy to get. It's so innocuous. And it's so ingrained in our culture that we think that we need we think we need it, or we think it's so a part of it that it's so dangerous. And I wonder if cannabis is different. It is different. People always try to compare them. But I wonder like where cannabis will go. Will be similar.
I would love to see cannabis become normalized in the way that like a blue collar Joe coming home from work saying he needs a beer is normalized. Yeah. I am very open with my daughter about cannabis. She, again, she kind of grew up around it, and it's never been this super secret bad thing. If I'm, I'll tell her, I'm like, I'm going to go smoke a joint on the porch. She knows. And then I come in and I just go about my day. And when I'm gifted cannabis products or like my little like area where my like little tins of edibles are stashed and like a couple eights, I do not worry about it at all with her. And it's but she's seen it modeled responsibly. And I would love to see a point where we have consumption lounges for people who don't want to drink or would prefer to choose cannabis over alcohol, go and responsibly enjoy that with their friends, because stoner culture already has that like community of like we get together and we do this together. And I would love to see that become more normalized for people, especially as the sober movement continues to grow. Will it get there in a timely manner? Probably not till everyone who still has the Reagan era just say no to drugs programming in them. I think we've got like a generation and a half that probably, for lack of a better term, like die off. That's horrible to say. But like,
boom. The boomers, man, they're a tough bunch. Yeah, they don't want to die.
There's just such a lack of understanding and education around it too. Yeah. And I think we have a lot of hurdles to overcome. But I would love, in 10 years to go into Portland and be able to walk into a business and be like, I will take this strain. Please roll me a joint. Thank you, bartender, bud tender. And like sit with my friends and do that and have that option. I would love to see that.
I think that'd be really cool. It's just so funny because like smoking is so much different than drinking.
Yes.
Like, and that's another thing that's just been, back in the day, smoking used to be you could smoke in hotels, you could smoke in restaurants. It was I remember this. I remember like going to restaurants and I hated it.
The smoking section and the non-smoking section.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it'd be like, this is so gross, like that this is happening. And just think about that, like, but back when those kids, when my parents grew up, it wasn't gross. It was just like this was so normalized and it was such a thing. But because we had like a non-smoking section, we knew what it could be like without it. So, like, I think smoking but they have so many drinks and ways to consume cannabis now. And so I think that it's great that for those people who still want to smoke and have consumption lounges like that, but also have a place where they can go and consume these drinks that are non-alcoholic. And like I said, I don't know. I think we're going to, hopefully we keep studying cannabis and we keep learning more about it and we keep understanding the plant and understanding how it can help it and how we can use it for different things and for building material and for all this stuff that it could be useful for. And, with hemp and all, like, I hope that we keep going towards that. I don't want make sure that we do it safely. But if I say it, I've said it 1,000 times in the show that like if you can replace alcohol with cannabis 1-to-1, do it today.
Yep.
Do it today. Like, don't stop waiting. Like if you have an issue with cannabis, an issue with alcohol, and you think that cannabis could help you, and even if you need to become reliant on the cannabis for a little while, like, that's fine. You know, it's better than being reliant on alcohol.
Oh, 100%.
Just because the outcomes on the other side of it are so much more detrimental. You know, death. You know, crime.
Yes,
Yeah.
you know, cirrhosis, like increased risk of dementia. Just so many health risks are associated with like chronic alcohol consumption, and you know, obviously, smoking all the time is going to come with health risks as well. But I do see it. I see it as, you know, something that is such a great alternative for so many people, and we do have so many sober communities here in Maine too, where and it's people who do rely on cannabis instead of drinking, and that's how they get their sense of community. And it, you know, they're like when they feel like they want to go drink, or maybe they were addicted to something else, then instead they have some cannabis. You know, and like the pharmaceutical world is already well aware of the benefits of cannabis. Isn't Zofran derived from cannabinoids? Is it that one? It's an anti-nausea medication.
Zofran is an anti-nausea medication, but I don't know if it is. I don't believe that it's derived from cannabinoids, but it's I actually don't know. I mean, I don't think so, because that's something that I probably would have picked up on.
There's a couple medications on the market
Drobenenol, which is called Marinol.
Yeah.
You know, if you've ever heard of that, that's a drug that they will use for, you know, for anti-nausea.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two more, Epidiolex.
Maybe I'm thinking of the Marinol, the one that you just said. But, you know, so like the pharmaceutical world is already aware of the benefits of cannabis. There's a reason that doctors recommend getting a medical card for cancer patients. I have severe gut issues that kind of wax and wane over the years, and there's times where I'm not drinking at all, and the only thing that is keeping me from like feeling like I legitimately would like to just disappear off the face of the earth is like smoking something or taking a tincture or something like that. I mean, there's just so much potential for it, but again, we're existing in a system that isn't made to let a substance like that succeed. So it'll be really interesting. I don't think we'll see too much as far as descheduling and progress in the next 3 to 4 years, but I'm hopeful in the next like 10 we see like some serious leaps and bounds.
That's pretty crazy to think about, because most like, you know, like descheduling, you're saying, do you think like rescheduling will happen and they'll go through that whole process and stuff? Like,
who even knows what's going on right now?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
There's been a lot of talk of the rescheduling, but at the same time, it's just like, why schedule it at all?
Yeah,
you know?
I agree. It's a plant.
Why schedule it at all? I mean, it's just, nobody smokes a joint and goes and murders their family.
Right.
No one smokes a joint and commits like a horrible, I mean, maybe if it's like there's something sketchy in it, but no one just rolls up a joint and it's like, I'm going to go kill my wife. That just doesn't happen. And so it's, I think so many of us in the community see that, but again, we've still got all of that Reagan era drug programming hanging around and this misinformation, and the people that make the laws are that age. So again, until we have people aging out or like senators literally like dying off and things like that, I don't know how much progress there's going to be made.
Yeah, I agree. It should be more free, and I think that like for the alcohol thing, like I think that even a better, you know, tool than cannabis is psilocybin mushrooms.
Yes, you know, I'm such a huge advocate for that. I want to see that legalized. I want to see it available. I want to see veterans have access to it. I did a microdose schedule a few years ago. I've been very open on my platform through the years about like having some struggles with anxiety, and the worst of it was definitely just a shitty relationship. Turns out I just needed to like get rid of him, and I felt a lot better, but I still had this anxiety lingering, and it changed my life. Like just getting on a microdose schedule and literally like a single packet of gummies changed my life. Did like 3 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, 2 days off, and I have not once felt like I'm waking up with a hippo on my chest since then. Literally life-changing.
Is that the only time that you've done it?
Well, no. Like I've done mushrooms, and I like to microdose too. Like if I'm not, if you just want to kind of have like a more positive day, I do find too that it helps alleviate some of my ADHD symptoms. I have Adderall for that, but I don't like to take it every single day. You know, it's a heavy-duty substance.
Yeah,
I need. There are definitely days where I need it to be able to function.
Yeah, that helps you.
It's like my ADHD is like brutal, you know, and if you're overtired, you're not feeling well, yeah, anything like that, it just drives the symptoms into like a land where I'm like crying from frustration with myself.
Yeah.
So it helps with a lot of that. It helps with mood. People who are sober, they feel a little bit more up for socializing and a little less anxious over socializing. They don't feel the need for the lubricant of alcohol if they're doing it. I just think it's so wonderful and it has so much potential. And then as the daughter of a veteran and someone from a military family, I love to do stuff. Like if you look on my page, you'll see me like do stuff with the VFW, or like we did a oil giveaway to a veteran, things like that. And my dad works for the VA too.
Oh, cool.
And it's this untapped resource that could benefit so many people without the side effects that make them sick, without the side effects that give doctors just a carte blanche to prescribe more pills.
Yeah, how about not? It's so threatening because, like you said, it's something that you can do that you don't need to necessarily continue to always do. The substance continues to work. It does the work on you, and you have to do the work, and then you get better, you heal, so that you don't necessarily need it as much, or sometimes not at all. Like I think that it's always good to have it in your back pocket and to be able to go back towards it. And I'm definitely very much so in this period where I'm using it as a tool to heal from things and to learn about myself and to learn about the world and to deal with whatever you want to, you want to call it neurodivergency, whatever, ADHD. I don't know. I don't know. Like there's, I think that if it's a way that you can help to decrease the amount of Adderall that you're taking, that's amazing. Fucking yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, stimulants I get nervous about stimulants, and I wish that there was a better way to help people, like you, like me, who, have some type of dopamine deficiency, dopamine disorder, where it's like we need to have better understanding of when we should be eating, how we should be eating.
Oh yeah, I'm constantly joking with my friends. They're like, "How did you do all this stuff?" And I'm like, "Listen, man, I'm just chasing the dopamine here." Yeah. And it's because of that, because thankfully my brain doesn't want to find it in substances, but my brain is still seeking it out in other places, like eating a pound of cheese at night.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you let it go that way, and sometimes you can use it like the tools. You can use it creatively, and it can be a superpower. It can be a superpower in many ways. I hope that we find out so much more about ADD and ADHD and about the food and about the medicine that we take and just where it's all going is, like I said, the world is different now than it was, last summer and, because of the election. And sometimes I feel like the wool is being pulled over our eyes and stuff like that. But I do hope that health outcomes could improve with this administration. We'll see, but I can only hope, right? So
I don't know, man. If they send me to a wellness farm, they're in trouble because, if I'm unmedicated, I cannot take verbal instructions to save my life. So
yeah,
yeah,
right. I don't. You better not send you to a wellness farm.
I'm sorry. So, what did you want me to do again?
I don't
go over it one more time. I know we did it 10 times, so tell me again.
Yeah, right. I don't know. Yeah, the wellness farm thing, I'm not even sure necessarily. I know that Bobby Kennedy suggested that for people who have, but to be honest, I've been through that stuff too, where, if somebody told me instead of going to a treatment center where you are, necessarily you might be put on an anti-opiate medication, like Suboxone or Vivitrol, and you're going to be inside, in group, which can be good, talking with humans is good, but you're inside, if you could be outside working,
100%,
being with animals, I'm a very big believer in light biology and our relationship with the sun. And so if you could get, some of this stuff might even be because of deficiency in, certain vitamins and certain,
Yeah, I don't disagree at all that people, the joke is touch grass or whatever, you know? I'm outside all the time for that reason. It's science. Touching dirt makes us feel better. It releases chemicals in us that make us feel better. Spending time with animals, petting them, being around them makes us feel better. Yes, there's cows all over my Instagram page because I really like cows, but go hug a cow and see how much better you feel after that. It's great. There's so many things that we can do. And I do think that I'm hopeful that maybe we'll see a plants over pills approach come out of this. I'm hopeful, but I don't know how optimistic I am with it. I think that we're just in for some really weird times, and there's so much misinformation out there as well. Even with it when it comes to ADHD. or very like neurodivergences that have been, people are now taking them a little bit more seriously, which is great because growing up as a child, it was very frustrating to always be told that like, be reminded that you tested at this super high IQ, but like, so you're just not doing something because you don't want to, or because it's an excuse, or like, why can't you just be normal? So we're kind of at this really interesting intersection of misinformation, more information, and then like weird normalization of a thing that I don't think ADHD should be normalized. People are like, oh, everyone has a little ADHD. I'm like, come at me when you have forgotten your work laptop every single day for a week and you have to drive an hour back. Come at me when you are crying in the middle of your house because you have no executive dysfunction and like cannot even hold on to a task for more than like 5 minutes and you know it's happening and you can't stop it. So it's really, it can be really brutal. And so I'm really hopeful that plants over pills and more information and better information and the elimination of misinformation with this stuff will all kind of collide and produce a healthier society in the long run.
Let me introduce you to Elevate, a premium functional mushroom company focused on supporting your highest potential. They offer a range of powerful supplements crafted from the finest medicinal fungi designed to naturally enhance your well-being. Elevate carries everything from mushroom tinctures, capsules, and teas to their delicious mushroom-infused coffees. All of their products are made with USA-grown mushrooms and contain only wild medicinal mushrooms, no psychoactive compounds. I personally use their Focus Tincture every day and love their chai tea blend. It's my go-to for a calming yet energizing boost. Elevate's products support mental clarity, immunity, and overall vitality. They ship nationwide, so whether you're new to functional mushrooms or already a fan, Elevate has something for you. Check them out at shopelevatemushrooms.com, where you will find a detailed description of each product and experience the difference for yourself. Yeah. Amen. Amen to that. You know, like the biggest thing that I'm so glad you said that, because we don't want to normalize this stuff, right? Like that's what they want. They want everyone to think, like, even me, I don't even, like, I used to say I was diagnosed with like adult ADHD, and like, that's probably true, right? Like, it's probably true. It's definitely fucking true. But I don't even want to associate it with it because it's like, I don't even want to call myself neurodivergent. I don't want to, because I'm just a guy. I'm just a person who's trying to exist. And then I think, we've created these labels that people just want to, they want to go towards because they're not necessarily feeling good. And they just say, oh, well, I have to do this. And I have to, then you go down like this path to diagnose.
Armchair diagnosis and they overdiagnose. I think that ADHD is wildly overdiagnosed.
Yeah, wildly overdosed.
Sure.
Oh, like 100%. So many people are on stimulants that don't need to be, that it's just crazy.
It's not fun. Like, being on Adderall, even as somebody who actually needs it sometimes to function, it's not a good time. You don't feel great. And even then, sometimes if you're past a point with like yours, again, like I've got tested like very young. To my parents' credit, they were very proactive about it because they're like, this kid's really smart, but something's up. Mm-hmm. And I know for a fact they were like, maybe we should see if she's got the tism, and that's when I got the ADHD diagnosis. But it's wildly overdiagnosed. It's such a crutch, and that's because I think that's a lot because of like the harmful attitude we have towards it. We're like, everyone's got a little ADHD. No, they don't.
Right.
No, just because you have a hard time focusing in meetings does not mean you have ADHD. Just because you're like, I don't like the boring stuff, that doesn't mean you have ADHD. Again, like when your executive dysfunction is non-existent, when you're dealing with these symptoms, you can't remember anything, you're losing something the second you set it down in an 800 square foot apartment. Mm-hmm. That's when it's like, okay, this is life interrupting and this is something. But when... And
it sounds like you're in that box, for sure, right? Yeah, I mean, even today, this morning.
Brutal. Yeah, this morning when I went to Lyman instead of came here.
Yeah, so, which is so...
It was the same address, though. It was also...
It's not really not your fault, and we're gonna do better. We're gonna do better, because that's, probably at least 25% our fault, too. But I love that you're saying this, and I hear it. And I hear it because it's so many people associate with it, and they're just like, oh, I'm ADD because I decided that I wanted to, do TikTok and live in the blue light and do this. And not that I'm, immune to that entirely sometimes, not that I'm a fucking content creator. So it's like I have to be online, so that it's a huge crutch. I feel like it happened very much so coincided with the opiate epidemic going away. So people needed something, doctors needed something to prescribe. We needed a little bit something to make people feel something, and we just went down this huge path of overprescribing stimulants.
Yeah, and then you give that substance to somebody with the wrong brain chemistry, and then you've got an addict.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And again, the system isn't broken. The system is doing what the system was made to do: make sick people who stay sick.
Make sick people sick. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. The system it's designed this way, and it's like our job to fight back to create a new one. And maybe like you said, it's the empire thing. Like so, entropy is like a chemical term. Where once a system starts, it immediately is being destroyed. It's immediately it's the highest that it is when it first starts and comes into creation, and then it just always is going. Is giving away energy. And so like that's what I think, can happen with these, with these empires is that I do wonder about the United States and about America and what will happen with it and where it will go. And I'm hopeful because I'm in it, right? Like I need to.
You have to be. What's the alternative?
What's the alternative? I have a son. Exactly. And I want it to be the greatest place ever. But it does feel like, maybe we're going in a direction that it's,
I spend a lot of time out of the country, especially the last 2 years, and I feel like every time I leave, it's harder to come home and be hopeful.
Yeah,
for
sure.
Have
you thought about leaving?
Yeah, my daughter's still in high school. She turns 16 this year, and every single day, I'm like, how can I possibly expat to a place where the system is less broken, where the food doesn't make me sick? Because like I told you, like you mentioned the gut issues and stuff, where people are like happy and encouraged to be happy. I think about that a lot. I think I'm eligible for Italian citizenship, and then you mentioned Polish. My daughter, her dad's side is like 3rd generation off the boat, so she's eligible for citizenship. And I love to just like sit around at night after like a joint and just be like, how am I gonna leave this place? But But again, like growing up as the daughter of a veteran and stuff, you have that pride and I think a little extra too. And I still have that kind of that hope that maybe it will be like at some point we'll return back to something that feels like we can be more proud of. Like I want that feeling of like when I was a kid and being like, my dad's in the Navy and that it being like awesome and being like really proud of that and being like, yeah, I'm American. It's so cool. And it's getting, I just feel like it's getting harder and harder for that, honestly.
Yeah, and it's funny because like right now we're going in a way where like public perception is going back towards, maybe American exceptionalism is coming back. Like we're back. Trump is back. We're gonna bring all the jobs back. That's what the tariffs are all about. We're gonna do all this stuff that's for America first. And I don't know. Maybe it will work, but maybe it's a big con, by people who are just trying to make it seem like change is happening, but it's not actually happening. And
I'm inclined to believe that one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing worldwide protests right now that are not being aired by the U.S. media against like fascism, against policy that's coming out of here that will affect the globe. It's just we're in such a bizarre time.
It is weird because I see a lot. Like I don't know what platform. And I obviously know you're on Instagram and stuff. And like I'm on Instagram. I'm on X. Twitter and like. Ugh. Yeah, you don't like it. Say, yeah. So that's the thing is I do see a lot of the stuff, coming out of like I do see a lot of the news. I feel like I do see a lot of like the stuff that's happening worldwide, the protests. I do see a lot of that on X. I do feel like there's a narrative maybe that's being written, but I do feel like it's the freest place for free speech.
It's owned by somebody who's wants to censor his entire platform.
But so is Instagram. Worse.
Oh, Instagram's heavily censored.
Yeah,
I'm not denying that at all. I don't rely on any social media platforms for actual news. I try really hard not to. I have like friends I follow internationally and stuff, but I try really hard not to rely on social media for news because at the end, social media platforms have their own agendas on what they show us, the algorithms, everything.
Where do you get your news then?
Al Jazeera actually is an excellent resource. So I worked with a nonprofit for a while that does international medical missions, and it was recommended to me by like one of like the Doctors Without Borders that like worked with our organization, and he was like, hey, if you want to like get like really unbiased information from both sides of the spectrum, start reading Al Jazeera. And it's really like the Al Jazeera English is actually very balanced reporting. You don't get too much of a bias one way or another. But I'm chronically online because of what I do and for work, but at the same time, I try really hard not to get my information from there because, again, it's a system made to hook us and keep us mad and keep us engaging with the platforms.
Yeah, right.
However, with whatever side of the spectrum we fall on. Like, that's the whole purpose, is to hook you, feed you the dopamine, give you the serotonin from the scroll, make you angry and interact online, and then we can feed you more stuff that keeps you online more. So it's just such a slippery slope. It's like
it really is a slippery slope, you know.
Maybe we
because,
just all died in 2020 and we're stuck in a weird simulation.
Yeah, maybe it's always been a simulation. You know, the 2020 stuff is, you know, that's why I you know, the COVID stuff was huge for me. You know, I'm a pharmacist. I saw a huge crime taking place. You know what they were doing. Now they're coming out and saying that, you know, it was made for the Deborah Bricks, who's like was the you know, Trump administration, you know, spokesperson on it. She was like, oh yeah, now we know it was just for this, you know, for an elderly sick population, but we had to give it to everybody because we didn't think the American public could understand that nuance. That's crazy. It was criminal. So I think like the world did change in 2020. Al Jazeera, I think, you know, I don't know much about them besides that, like it's a Middle Eastern publication, right?
I believe they're headquartered in Qatar.
Okay, yeah,
I think.
Qatar. It's a United States ally. You know, that's good at least. You know, so but people like pro-Israel people, right? Like they would probably say, or like a lot of American people would say that Al Jazeera is was not good, right?
I wouldn't say pro-Israel. I'd say pro-Zionism.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like pro-Israel. We don't need to get into ethno-states today. But
for sure.
I think because of the name, it will elicit a certain response from certain demographics for sure. But they're again very good at like very straightforward. Like you'll find articles and op-eds that are praising Israel as much as you'll see pro-Palestine content. For an example, you'll see both sides of the spectrum for sure. And they also utilize a lot of international reporters who are actually based in these countries. So people who are more aware of the situation, they understand more of the nuance too. It's just better reporting. Whereas you pull up Fox News and it's just awful, or that you pull up CNN and you're just like, what? Okay, I can't even handle this right now.
Yeah, see, that's funny because I put Al Jazeera like in that same category. I don't know because I need to look into that, and I will after this. You know, just to check into them more and to, you know, get with my people and see what you know we think of that. But it's, you know, I feel like that before I was just like putting that all into there, and I'm trying to like cultivate a you know, independent journalists, you know, people that I can kind of trust. But again, it's the world, the information world out there. I almost think that it's part of me sometimes thinks like, you know, because we do this for a living, right? And I definitely want to talk about that next, is like, I think sometimes you know, shutting it off would be better, and that entirely, and just like going back to figuring out a way to you know, going back to having a farm and you know, and figuring out how to live off the land enough to be able to provide for my family and to just be as present as possible. Like,
we need a new system for that, though.
Yeah, we need a new system for that.
Yeah.
You know, that's some people already, you know, some people who are lucky enough and are, you know, have the ability or, you know, the grit enough, they've been able to create that for themselves. But that's so funny, right? Like that, we need a new system for that. But I actually would argue that that's what we want to do, but that it needs to be different than that, because if we do that like right now, a bunch of successful, like, you know, like successful men and women are taking themselves out of society. So that they can protect their family and their life, and they're removing themselves from the greater community because they don't want to partake. That's bad. That's not a good thing. We want those exceptional people to be with us and be doing it.
It is worth noting, though, that without proper support and knowledge, most homesteads go under. I think the statistic is within like 6 years or something.
Yeah,
people stop homesteading, and on top of that, right now, most farmers and homesteaders rely on USDA grants to be able to help make ends meet. Farmers have to pay up front for certain things, and then they are then compensated on the back end through the USDA grants. And we now have farmers and homesteaders all over the country who cannot get their grant money because of funding freezes.
Yeah, I mean,
so again, it all comes back to a system that's just not meant for us.
Right. Yeah, the system's not meant for us, and I don't know who it's meant for. Like, but I don't know, and I don't know the way to fix it. Right? I said I don't know
exactly.
But to be honest, like that, this is what's frustrating, right? And is that nothing before with the Democrats, it was purposefully being not even talked about, obfuscated, like it's not a big deal. Like we don't need to fix anything. Like we don't need to fix spending. We don't need to fix any of this stuff. When like there is so much, like of those farmers, like some of those, you know what? I love some of those farmers. To some of those other farmers, like I know they're doing what they have to do, but I would love to take their operation and break it in half because they're incentivized to poison us with glyphosate, and Roundup and all these other,
Because
pesticides.
That's the system, right? Keep the people sick.
Right. So I'm saying right now, I'm not, maybe, there's a chance here where if we do freeze some of this funding, instead of just being like, let's keep doing everything that we're doing, let's freeze some of this funding. Let's not like allow this to happen. And let's figure out some of these policies to make things actually better. And people who will, if we create different incentives, people will rise above. And yeah, I mean, some people are going to get lost in it and that sucks. And I don't want that to happen, but it's like, I want a better food system. I want a better medicine system.
Well, I mean, that is just make those chemicals that make us sick fully illegal, right? That's just take it out of the equation entirely. The problem is farmers and these smaller blue-collar workers are the backbone of our country, and they are now shackled, and they will go under very quickly. Even huge farming operations, their margins are super slim. Farming equipment cost is ridiculous. Farmers don't make that much money, and their equipment costs $500,000, $1 million. Like, that's where some of the grant money comes in, but also for like basic stuff like animal care and things like that. And so we're going to end up seeing a lot of like all of these people who are committed to bettering the food systems with regenerative agriculture, ethical animal stewardship, growing organically. It's really expensive to do that. It's expensive as hell to do things the right way in a way that doesn't make people sick. And it's cheaper to do the shortcut, to spray everything with pesticide. And it's the people who do it the slow, expensive way that we're going to see getting harmed the most from this. Because they're like, shit, we just spent $6,000 on, I don't know, we bought a new pasture for our grass-fed beef that is actually grass-fed from birth till slaughter, and now we can't pay for our pasture. Now our farm's getting repossessed. So now the people in whatever area that they're serving are now having to go to the grocery store and buy feedlot beef.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think the opposite's going to happen. Like
I mean, I'm hopeful. Again, hopeful, not optimistic.
Be hopeful. I think that like I said, this is again. I don't know, and I think that it could be fucking awful and really bad. And sometimes it seems like they're, I don't want to trust, but I've never had this much trust in somebody as I have had in Robert Kennedy. I think that he is a person who is not afraid to not that he's been right on everything, but he's not afraid to fight back against corporate influence and corporate, the system that's been created, right? Like that, the system that we live in.
He is corporate. That's the thing.
He spent his entire life fighting against the corporate, the corporatocracy of the River Alliance.
What you're saying about that, but at the end of the day, he's still a guy with his own personal interests. And my concern is that the misinformation alongside, there's great stuff. Again, plants over pills, amazing. Let's make people less sick, right? I think that everyone wants that, especially here. Anyone who heads over to Europe for a couple weeks will be like, I didn't get sick once. I didn't have a tummy ache. Like, nothing made me throw up. And it's like, it's because there's no poison in your food. So that I'm very, very, very hopeful over that to see some like Red 40. We have so many chemicals in our food that internationally are banned.
Exactly, like already, but the FDA is already moving towards. Before he even got confirmed, FDA was already starting to move towards banning these dyes.
Yeah, Red 30 is now officially banned, but Red 40 is still, unfortunately, available. I
deep dived.
I also actively try to avoid. I'm a label reader.
Yeah.
But I used to cook.
I hope everyone's a label
too. Yeah, I think everyone should be, but people aren't. They just don't think. Americans specifically, I think we just don't, because we're in a society where it's like be productive, do as much as you can, be as efficient as possible, and that a lot of that is why we're in the situation we are with our food too.
Yeah.
Yeah, fast food, raise the beef as fast as possible. We don't care if it's healthy, if it's raised in humane conditions, if it's or how it's affecting the land it's on, or how healthy the cow is. Who cares? The point is that we've got the meat on the table, we've got the burger on the plate, and it's just our food system is so so damaged and broken. And I really am hopeful that we see some of the same chemicals that are banned overseas begin to get banned over here.
I think it's coming. I think it's coming.
I don't want to see red 40. I don't want to eat food that's been sprayed with pesticides. And if that means sometimes there's like a bug in my broccoli, I don't care. I'm a forager. There's bugs in the things I eat all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And that I mean, that's the thing. It's like not even that. It's like it's just so it's hard on the farmers. They make it really hard on the farmers. They force them into these situations. They own the farmers. And, you know, it's the big corporate companies that do this. Monsanto, you know, all the big food producers.
Literally, yeah. It's like actual Satan when it comes
Yeah,
to like food.
literally.
And internationally, too, what they do to farmers in India. It's horrible.
Yeah, yeah. And this is, internationally is even worse, you know, because there's less regulation there than there is here. But also overregulation in the United States is what's bad. So it's like I can't go to my friend and buy, you know, Maine's great, actually. Maine is awesome because Maine allows you to have you know, a commercial kitchen license that is very easy to obtain, that you are able to cook stuff in your house, and you're able. That's why you know, there's an awesome farmers market scene that people
I think we're a food sovereign state, but don't quote me.
Is that what it's called? Food
think
sovereignty.
so.
I just know that it's a lot. You know, it's a lot easier than New Hampshire, for instance, to get a residential commercial
Yes.
kitchen licensed, and it's why, you know, a lot of people in cannabis were able to be successful and to build their businesses at first because they were able to do that out of their house. And like I advocate for that wholeheartedly. I think that is great. You know, there can be downsides to it, of course, you know, in terms of like safety, but like they're a lot more minuscule than people like make them out to believe. You know, if somebody in their community wants to go get raw milk, they should be able to go get raw milk. You know, they should, you know, they might have to take that.
I absolutely think that raw milk should be something people can easily attain. I don't personally drink it, but I love to cook with it. I also make cheese. I like to make my cheese with raw milk.
Oh, yeah.
It tastes better, has a better fat content. That should be things that are available to people. Absolutely. And we are very spoiled here in Maine to have access to those sorts of farmers markets and stuff. But what we have access to, that way of life, is so rare for so many people throughout the country. I was at a farm in Massachusetts once, petting a cow. There was a cow I had a sales route that took me past this farm, and they had this one cow I named Fat Cow. And I would stop off and say hi to her every time I was in the area. And there's a woman there, and she was like, "Oh my God, I can touch it." I'm like, of course, I'm like all the way in this cow. I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I'm from Los Angeles. I've never even seen a cow." Like, there's people all over the country that they've never seen a farmer's market. They've never seen a cow. Like, they just have no. So it's, you know, it's a double-edged sword, because I would love to see people be healthier. But now it's like, what happens to these people in food deserts? How are they going to get food? They rely on fast food. They rely on gas station food, which is all full of terrible choices. When we take that all out, how can they afford and access healthy food? Why should we in Maine be able to have access to this beautiful, healthy food and then not have it available to the rest of our country, you know? So it's like, how do we, again, the system is broken.
Plenty of food deserts in Maine too, though. If you look into it, you know, plenty of places where
Aroostook County, like.
Yeah, places just where it is because of the rurality of it, or because it's some of the cities don't have as much, you know, money, or, you know, that they'd like to have. And food does,
We actually also have a very high rate of food insecurity in Maine. For children, we are one of the most food insecure states.
Yeah, it's horrible.
For kids.
Yeah, it's
Washington County is one of the poorest counties in the country, consistently ranked.
So we got to change something. We need to change something big time. And that's what I'm saying, is like before that and that's why I'm kind of just upset that, like, you know, a lot of the Democrats are just like, you know, because like something's going to change here, whether it's going to be, and if it gets really worse, then let's talk about it then, you know, let's keep these people accountable. Let's hold them accountable. But we're talking about change, like real change, I feel like, for the first time since I've been alive. Like, that's how I feel like, because especially with this food thing, I've been, you know, since 2000, my own journey, you know, with opiates in 2016, and you know, being on that path of getting healthy and finding a new way to heal. And then, you know, the whole COVID debacle and locking people down and the lengths that they went to get people the vaccine were crazy to me. And they're being proven to that point now. You know, like I said, Deborah Bricks is coming out. You know, Paul Offit, who's was the vaccine special, you know, the vaccine doctor. You know, these guys that were head of policy making decisions. And so things are changing. Things are, and I like I said, the food desert thing. Like, you know, it's incentives. It's like we, you know, the and I don't know, like this is a big thing. This is the public right now. So like SNAP benefits, so like food stamps, for instance, we spend $11.5 billion annually on Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So it's like, and then should you not tell people what they can and cannot buy with their food stamps? Or
on WIC they do.
What?
People on WIC.
They tell them that
they're not allowed to buy certain things with their WIC. They're not allowed to buy like junk food and like sodas and things like that.
Right.
It's healthy. It's healthier choices is what they're
children.
allowed to. Yeah, because it's meant specifically to help out women and children. So they can only buy like healthier things or like WIC approved stuff. They can't buy like junk food and things like that with their WIC.
Even WIC approved stuff though, there's corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup and tons of baby formula, and like that's a thing that's going to change, and that would be wonderful. That's wonderful if we can get that out of the
There's a whole TED Talk and rabbit hole we could go down on formula.
Yeah.
And what like 1950s America did to like make formula successful. That I will put my tinfoil hat on for sure.
Yeah, girl. Like, let's make sure that these women can't breastfeed. Let's
tell them their bodies are inherently faulty.
Faulty, exactly.
That their cluster feeding baby actually just needs rice cereal at 3 months old and something made out of chemicals. And if you cannot breastfeed it, and absolutely need to save your sanity by giving your baby formula, by all means, just feed your baby.
Giddy up.
But when I had my daughter, even in the hospital, I was very specific. I breastfed exclusively for a year, and then I nursed her in total for a little over 2. I'm very much like pro. There's just the benefit for you, the benefit for your child.
Amazing. Yeah, I can't teach
It's amazing. Like, and also just like I was like that mom that was like, I just got a rash, just like wipe some breast milk on it. It's fine.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was.
I would put breast milk right into my son's eyes.
Yeah.
Anytime he would show any type of eye gunk, any type of eye closing, I'm taking his bottle. People are looking at, what's he doing? Putting breast milk right in there.
That lauric acid in there. It's like so good. But yeah, and it was like, let's start here. I mean, that was like really the 50s is really when we started to see a society that was beginning to genuinely become sick too, and that big like formula.
Yeah.
Push was a huge part of that. When I had my daughter, I was very clear. I was like, do not give her a bottle. I'm exclusively breastfeeding, whatever. And they show up and they're trying to give her bottles of Similac. They're giving me formula to take home. And this whole time they're like, well, you don't know if you can. You don't know if you can. I'm like, well, at this point, I might just do it out of spite. Like, leave me alone.
Right. We're going to learn. We're going to learn together.
Yeah.
It's something, I know it can be really challenging for some moms, but there should just be more support around it.
Yes, I was very lucky and privileged that I had no issues with it. But I also, anytime, I had my daughter so much earlier than, the people like you or like my friends. And
your body was ready.
Apparently it was just like, now's the time.
It's another perversion of society, I feel like, though, like our generation, and I not necessarily, but like I don't, I think you likely probably were, a little bit on the extreme of the other side. Yeah. And I didn't have my first son until I was 31. And I think, I don't know, for men, I feel like that's fine. But for women, it's fine too. Women should be able to have babies up until their 40s. Mm-hmm. But we made it seem like they shouldn't be having babies young, I feel like, for a little while. We kind of went against that. Well, then we also tell
women not to have babies old.
Yeah.
Or old.
Of course,
a 35-year-old says she's pregnant. People are like,
oh my God, you're advanced maternal age.
There's a whole, again, it's just that it's part and parcel with our society's like obsession with policing women and their bodies. There's no right way. You don't have it too young, but don't have it too old. And then like, oh, you're only breastfeeding? Like, okay, there's a problem with that. And then you're only formula feeding, and there's a problem with that. You just can't win with stuff like that at all. But again, like formula is one of those things where it's like, it jams down our throat. And if you look at the ingredients on some of those formulas, you're just like, I don't want this. I wouldn't put this in my body. This kid's brand new. Why would you put something in that kid's body? This kid just got here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the, I try to do a good job with my son as best I can. And he loves, and it could be kid specific. I know some people have tried really hard and then they say, yeah, we did all the healthy thing and the kid just was so picky and we can't help it. But yeah, the food system needs to change, and I'm hopeful that it might. I'm hopeful that it might. It's funny too, because like when you're a public person on this, and you have opinions about this stuff, and you put it out there and stuff. Especially me, like somebody who is, I grew up very liberal. I grew up, as a Union Democrat. That's what my dad was in the Union.
You said you're from Massachusetts.
I'm from Massachusetts.
Yeah, it tracks. Yeah,
tracks, right? Like, come on. And so, but as I became an independent sometime in, the mid 2010s, and maybe before that, maybe during college, 2012 or so. And because I just saw that, like, this is bullshit. Like, a lot of this is bullshit. The system needs to be fixed. It needs to be different. And I've been trying to make a dent in that sense. And, the health stuff, just being able to talk about, like, throw me some tinfoil, some of this stuff, like with COVID, like, with the vaccine, like it was bad. It was not, we gave it to too many people. The mRNA thing is new. People are seeing outcomes from it now. Like, this is stuff that we're seeing, and like, we're just being able to openly talk about it. And it's like, this is stuff that we saw for, early research saw in 2021, like 2020, they were letting us know this stuff. And so I'm hopeful that.
I'll put the tinfoil hat on there with you. I'm very pro vaccinations for preventable diseases. I don't think the COVID vaccine, this will probably like get me some side eye. I don't think the COVID vaccine rollout should have ever happened. And if it did, it should have been handled wildly differently.
Yeah.
I was still working as a chef during this. And my partner at the time got sick. And the state was like, everyone now has to, like, this was before, like, the mandates. They were like, if you guys want to be open, everyone has to be vaccinated. We had to close for 2 weeks, 2 full weeks. For a small brewery, by the way, is a death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And it was brutal. And I got the first dose of one. And I had been exposed to COVID multiple times. My sister had gotten it. My daughter had gotten it. My partner at the time had gotten it. And I never picked it up, and I got the first dose, and I was like the color of the tile on the wall. I was so sick. I was just like, oh my God. They were like, you have to do the second dose. And I was like, that's a hard no. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm not doing that. I was like, no. I was like, anything that makes me this sick is just like, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't even lift my arm.
Yeah, it's like, it was like this crazy experiment that was just rolled out onto everybody.
They're just like, so we made this in the lab. Try it.
Yeah, and it's just not safety. And like I said, the vaccines can be good. I think that maybe, but we need to
people in
look
underdeveloped countries will literally walk hundreds of miles barefoot with their kids on their back to make sure that their child doesn't die of preventable diseases. And that's important. In 2000, I think it was the WHO, not the CDC. The World Health Organization officially declared that measles had been eradicated in the United States. What's happening in Texas right now? There's a huge measles outbreak. There's like 60 children now that have been fallen sick and been hospitalized as a result. I think vaccines have a time and place for sure. Like, let's not have our
I think the reporting on that is a little
dying of polio and things like that. But at the same time, like, rolling out something irresponsibly like that on such a large scale to so many people was wildly irresponsible and never should have been handled that way.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I do, the measles thing, I think that they some of the reporting on it has been a little bit funky. I know that of the, I think there's like 20 something, 60 kids that got 63 kids that got diagnosed with it. 20 of them are in the hospital. As they know, so right now, 13 were unvaccinated, 4 were vaccinated. So it's in measles, like the most of those kids should be fine. We should be able to treat those kids, and we should have education around that. And like, so I don't think that we need to study this stuff more, and we need to look into it more and know if there is. There's the mom community. I don't know if you've ever run into some of these moms, but they, some of these, vaccines, Hep B, for instance, hepatitis B, we give to a child who, if a mom comes in and says, I'm not a drug user, I've never used drugs, I'm not an IV, I'm not, actively having sex with anybody who's, is in this community. The baby is a baby, so they're not going to be using IV drug use. I'd like to delay this Hep B vaccine maybe till later. Like, you would be ostracized.
I spaced out all of my daughters, like, heavily spaced out. She got everything, but that was like necessary, but I spaced it out for that reason.
See, and that's good. Exactly. And I think that we need to learn more about that. Like, I know I would have a lot of, people in my, my previous field, in pharmacy that would maybe even stop talking to me if I suggested delay vaccination and that we should study that more. That's how strong that side of it is. And it's like, I think right now we're going to go where, let's keep everybody safe. The measles thing is definitely alarming, and we need to figure that out. But I also think that that's like fear tactics, and we need to be aware of that, because we should never allow, like we talk about you and I have talked about capitalism a ton today, and that these companies are always the ones who are good at capitalism, the ones who can figure out the need and really drive it home to produce profit for their shows.
The medical system is for profit. Yeah, that's the biggest issue right there.
And we make money off sick people. What a better way to get people, hey, you, right when you're born, a profit generating center, right when you're born, you need to get these 72 vaccines. That's how many doses it is. 72 vaccines. I think that it's 13 different vaccines, 54 doses, 54 shots, 72 different doses of vaccine.
Yeah.
Is what it
when
ends
I
up being.
found out just the sheer volume, I was like, she just got here. No.
Right.
We're this was a long time ago. Anyway, I had my spawn so long ago. But even then, and I was young and not nearly as like well versed in like this stuff as I am now. And even then I was like, no. We're going to space this out. I was like, she got a couple really basic ones, and then I spaced everything else out. And everyone at the hospital, which I'll never do a hospital birth again, which is another separate tinfoil hat thing. Everyone at the hospital was giving me grief over it. The pediatrician she had where we lived at the time was like giving me grief. And I was like, straight up, no, dude. She just got here.
Yeah, good for you.
I was like, I don't, we'll make sure she doesn't die of anything. But at the same time, like, no,
right.
Like, we're not doing all of that right now. Like, no, thank you.
Imagine being a mom that like,
but we have the privilege. We need to acknowledge that we have the privilege of being able to say no to these things.
Yeah, but barely. We barely even have the privilege to say no. Is that what you mean? Like I feel like we don't. You get ostracized from society.
We have the choice. I mean, again, in underdeveloped countries, people are walking hundreds of miles.
Exactly right. We have the
very
sanitation.
lucky.
Yeah, we have the sanitation where we can make and the treatment available where we can make these decisions and we can talk about this at least. And that's why we should be talking about it. And not necessarily just comparing ourselves to a place that doesn't have the same system as us and doesn't have the same infrastructure as us. Like, yeah, we should be grateful for it, and we should absolutely be grateful for it. I agree with you. It will just be so interesting to see where we land on it, because like I said, if you imagine being a mom, moms that I've talked to, a lot of moms that I've talked to that, like, your baby's everything's normal with your baby, everything's fine with your baby. They're interacting like I've seen what a 2-year-old can do now that I've gone through it. They can talk with you, they can interact with you. You know what their development level is.
It's fun when they start. You're like, oh, there's like a small human in here. This
is
cool.
Person, right? It's amazing.
Yeah,
and they just give you this great appreciation of life. And like, imagine if then you gave them a shot, and then 12 hours later, you know that this is everything in them changed, and now they are they're nonverbal autistic. And it's like, I've seen that happen to, I've seen mothers talk about this, and they've just been gaslit their whole lives saying, there's no way it could be this. There's no way it could be this. And I don't know if it's that. I don't think that I don't necessarily even think that it is. I think it's a culmination of everything that, the toxic soup that we're swimming around in. I also think that it's very
difficult if you have a child that gets diagnosed like that, that I think that a lot of people just want any answer.
Yeah,
too.
For sure.
I think that drives a lot of the misinformation around it too.
Yeah.
Because just think about how the grief that you feel when like you can't fix something for your kid.
Right.
And now turn it into something that then is going to make their life way more difficult in the long run. So I can totally understand just like the desperation of wanting answers.
Yeah, it's a desperation of wanting. So give me answers, right?
Exactly.
So
the why, wanting anything to be the why, even if it's not the reason. I can completely understand, like, just people being desperate to find the why when they have something like that happen.
Yeah, in 35 years, we've gone from it being 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 36.
We also understand now that it is a spectrum too. So people are getting diagnosed who maybe are not severely autistic or nonverbal, but we are seeing higher rates of diagnosis because we understand.
We're better at diagnosing. We're better at diagnosing it. We're better for sure. There's a lot of things. I don't think that accounts for an increase in incidences from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 36. I think that's like we talked about earlier, like everybody getting a neurodivergent label, or everyone getting
the overdiagnosis of these things.
The overdiagnosis of these things, but also it's the overdiagnosis of these things, but it's also like that there's something significant happening there. If it went from if it was like 1 in 100 and then it went to 1 in 36, that would be like, oh yeah, of course. Like we've gotten better at diagnosing guys, obviously here, and the spectrum is understanding it.
We do have to think about too, and over in Europe where there are still vaccine schedules where we're not seeing the same rates of diagnosis. So again, what does it bring us back to? It's the food, the chemicals in our food, the chemicals that we're consuming. Like there's just so much shit
food and medicine, right? Yeah, exactly.
put
Like
into
food we put in
our
our bodies. Exactly. Like how do we stop putting this bad stuff in our bodies? And like it's really unique because like you said, we're advocates in two different spaces. You specifically in with beer and cannabis, but me with cannabis. And it's you got to be safe with it. You got to really be safe in promoting stuff like this. And I'm not all for just like everything is good. Let's do it all the time. This is an amazing thing.
It's irresponsible to say all of this stuff is good and all of that stuff is bad. That's just an irresponsible take. So it is important to look at this and be like, okay, that actually is probably kind of bad, but like this is good. This is nice. It's just we're not in a society where everything can be all or nothing. It's not nothing's black and white, whether it's food, chemicals, anything. We're all just stuck in a gray area.
Right. Now, what are you thinking? I know we've talked about some serious stuff, here for a while. So what are you, being a public person and having that, like, what is it like to, to be a public person in Maine and to be a public person? Like, what's that like?
It's definitely strange. I didn't do it on purpose. Like, I never was like, I'm going to be an influencer. It's like, but so it is really weird. Now I honestly don't think about it that much, but I'll get like recognized in like restaurants or like bars and stuff. Or my daughter's always like, ugh, it's like so embarrassing for her. I'm like, sorry. Like, oh, your mom is so cool. It's funny. So she gets like, she's over it.
She's over it.
And I feel like when I was first starting out and the account really started to take off, I felt like I felt a lot of pressure that maybe did or did not exist to be like this very curated, don't like have too much personal opinions, stay in the lane that people think you should be in.
Leave your tinfoil at home.
Yeah, or like, you can say something mildly political, or like, I love doing stand-up. I did a bunch of stand-up pre-pandemic.
Cool.
And like you could be funny on it and people would be like, oh, stick to beer. And so like that, and I felt a lot of pressure from that. And then I also felt a lot of pressure to look, I mean, I look how I look, but I felt like I couldn't like go out looking like a full-on troll, even if I wanted to. And that was like made up, but again, tinfoil hat society, like expects so much,
especially being a woman. Yeah, yes. Exactly. Yeah.
And so for a long time, it was like I had a kind of a contentious relationship with it. Like I loved the opportunities that came from it. It was really enjoyable getting to attend cool events and like getting sent all kinds of beer and things like that. And I've often, probably mistakenly, was just like, I feel like everyone's like paying attention. And now I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. It's fine. My platform, even though I felt the pressure early on, my platform has always been very much just me. And it changes and morphs as I mature, as I grow, as I have different interests and, choose to drink less or explore new things. That all happens on my platform. And I think that now I just really care that I'm showing up as somebody that I feel good about. And I think that has carried over into how people approach me, how they see the platform. But it doesn't make it less weird. It's never not weird, like being in front of a camera and being like even now, I'm like, oh, I hope my face looks okay. Or having people...
It does.
Oh, thanks. Or having people kind of come up to you. It's very strange and it's very gratifying. I told you the gentleman sought me out and he wanted to write his paper on me, and he didn't drink, but we met at Bellflower because they are great about having non-alcoholic options. Shout out Bellflower Brewing. And so very cool stuff comes out of it. Or getting people messaging you, or like women, especially in the early on days, being like, I used to be so scared of going into a brewery. This is like 2016, because there's never any women there. And I saw you drinking beer online and I went to the brewery near my house. Or like, I started trying beer because of you. Or like, you talked about being like really anxious and stressed out, and this is really resonating with me because I'm feeling this way too. And I didn't know how to put words to it. And I think now I still love it. And now I don't feel self-conscious about being a public figure. And I feel so comfortable showing up as authentically as possible on my platform, because it's, I don't want to like say that I'm a leader at all, but as parents, when you're a parent, you're often leading by example. You're giving your kid the example, right? And I'm like, well, if I don't talk about these things, who's going to talk about it? If I don't say that I'm feeling these things, maybe someone else out there also won't say that they're feeling these things. And then I'll be fine in long, and I know I'll be fine, but maybe they won't be fine. So, but yeah, it's the whole big fish, small pond situation is now I just don't think about it. I don't think about it at all. I'm just like, this is what I'm about. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is what I'm comfortable with. And I hope you guys are along for the ride and this resonates with you and that you can get something positive from it. And so far, it seems to be working out really well.
Seems like it's, yeah, well, it seems like it's a cool mission, and like it's really cool to see that growth, and definitely something that I can like relate with, right? Like, because it's like my whole thing is about freedom. It's about being able to say what you think in a respectful, you know, beautiful way, and you know, maybe sometimes it's not, you know, someone might feel disrespected by it, but you know, that's not your intention necessarily. You're not trying to hurt anybody. I'm just trying to figure out truth. I'm just trying to figure out stuff, and so, you know, that is something that's so, you know, sometimes you're like, oh shoot, if I say that, is somebody gonna think this way about me? I have this friend who thinks this about, and like, you know, eventually I got to the point where I learned, I was like, oh no, like my people are my people, and that they're gonna love me no matter what, no matter what I say, and because they know me, they know who I am, and and if they do have issue with what I say, they'll come and talk to me about it, and say like, hey man, what's going on? Like, you said this, and I feel this way, and we can have a conversation about it, and like that's what it's all about. It's about unlocking the discourse.
Yeah. 100%.
It's about having the conversation, but it doesn't make it any less challenging. You know, it is super gratifying when you're talking to somebody and like, you know, I say to them like, oh yeah, I do a podcast, and they're like, yeah, I know, I listen. You know, I've listened to every episode, and I'm like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah, or like we're chatting, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Ashlee. I'm here because I do this thing. It's the Beer Mom, and they're like, yeah, I know. I'm like.
Right, I came to see you. Right, yeah, okay. It's like, oh, cool. You know, that's a connection bit, because that's what I'm searching for, right? That's what you're looking for. You're trying to connect with folks, and you're trying to create this space where that they can feel comfortable to talk about this stuff, and to, you know, in your case, you know, that women like beer, and that's an okay thing, and it's okay for women to be in these spaces, and it's okay to want to explore this stuff and to become this person.
It's okay to be loud and take up space and be yourself in a society that does not like to see that. They don't want to see people with differing opinions, especially women. Like, again, I'm a white woman, so I don't have to deal quite as much, like, as far as, like, barriers of entry goes. But, like, they don't want to see that. And so if I can be loud and take up space and it encourages someone else to be loud and take up space, that's great. But you also touched on something where something that I talk about a lot, too, is, like, I think a lot of people who become public figures get really lost in wanting to be liked by everyone. And that is such a booby trap of doing what you and I like to do, which is exist as like people who are just kind of out there. And I don't give a fuck anymore. I don't care. I'm not for everyone. And that's the whole point. The people that I want to find me will find me. And if they're on board, that's great. The trash takes itself out. That's fine. Like, that's such a big part of that is learning to not give too many fucks. You know, like Bad Bunny just released that amazing album, and he was in an interview recently, and they were like, aren't you worried about the people that you're going to alienate because your album's in Spanish? And he just goes, I don't care. And that's part of it. Being a public figure is learning to not give so many fucks. Mm-hmm. And once you can do that, it's incredibly freeing. Once you realize you don't need to be for everyone, I don't need everyone to like me. You're just like, holy cow, I am like 30 pounds lighter. Like, life is much easier. I don't feel so anxious in public situations where people might know who I am. And so much of it is just realizing that, like, you can put yourself out there and your people find you, and the ones who don't like you just fall away.
Mm. Yeah, it's a good message for me to hear, for sure. because I'm in the, I've grown up in the, I got to make everybody like me. That's been my personality, just I thought I was getting my
I think
worth
as
from.
millennials too, we're just like, that was pounded into us. It's
For
like
sure.
when we were young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's for people like us, I think people, a little bit more, maybe maybe I'm just speaking for myself too, but you seem similar that way where you're outgoing and you can, command the room and you can, dominate a social situation or command a social situation. It's like, it's just almost like it was a natural, I don't want to say natural thing because it's not natural, but it's just like you can fall into that.
I call that the shiny. I talk about that a lot, actually.
The shiny.
I call it the shiny, yeah. The ability to command a room and command attention and to put off this like energy that makes people like want to engage with you. I don't think everyone has that. I think it's like something like hospitality. I think you have it or you don't. And people like us, when we figure out how to kind of wield the shiny, it becomes a very powerful thing.
Yeah, exactly right. At first, I thought it was like a bad thing. I was like so worried that I was like nervous that like, oh, I have this ability, but I also wanted to make people like me. So I was like, oh, I don't know if I feel good. Like other people don't have this ability. Like, is this fair? Like, what's going like. But now I just become my authentic self, and my authentic self is that person. So that's who and I think that's what you've touched on a lot today is like that's so important to figure out who you are, give yourself the time and space to do that.
Do some mushrooms if you need to. Get the help with the introspection if you need the help.
That's right. That's exactly. I think because there's so many layers on our society and on us in the system that we exist in, that's what's so hard for people to access who they are and who their true selves are. And the mushrooms, they unlock that. They help to unlock that. They help to put you in a different space and help. The way I say it is it changes perception. It changes your perspective on things.
Well, and we know it does that on like a cellular level. It's literally rewiring our neural pathways for us to produce new ways of thinking, more productive ways of thinking. And I do. I think that everyone should at least try microdosing for that reason. It does help you do the work, the internal work to be able to then show up more authentically.
It can help you do the work.
You still have to do the work.
It's
exactly.
About the intention. You can just take some mushrooms and sure, that can be good too. And it can be fun. And I do that sometimes as well. But it's if you want to get, be intentional about it and then, do the work to afterwards, they call it integration. The integration that you do afterwards into what you learned, so if you're, during the mushrooms, you found out like, oh, like I don't need to be like, it was crazy that I was being anxious about what that person thought because like that person doesn't care anything. They were just like in their own world. Like they didn't mean that at all. Like, I can't believe I thought that. Like if you then don't take that into practice, then because then it happens again, even maybe with that same person and you still have that negative feeling. If you don't take your second thought and say, oh, no, that's not the right, that's me just, that was what the growth would be. That's what the integration would be. And that's what people I think sometimes lack is they just think that it's going to do the work on them and they need to actually do the work.
They're a tool in your tool belt. They're not the whole solution.
Yeah, nothing's a panacea, right?
Yes.
Like even that, like I even have a tough time saying that it's for everybody because I think that there's people who have achieved this. I think it could still benefit them. So I'm like, I have such a hard time with saying it. I really do think it could still benefit them, but I don't think that everybody like needs it. I think it could benefit them still, but they're doing good in their life and they're successful and they are happy and they have families and their families are good and they live love in their life. And so it's like, I can't say that.
So like healthy people with not enough trauma though.
Yeah, right.
They're not interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. The non-trauma folks. Exactly. Yeah. Like if they, or if people who've had some trauma and been able to figure it out in a different way and are just like, oh no, I'm past that where I don't need, I've been doing enough yoga and breath work in my life where I can figure this out. I go to the gym, I run, I do it,
Yeah. I think there's also some personality types that will just straight up like never benefit from those things. But overall as a whole, if somebody's willing to take that and use it as a tool to then better themselves and do all of the work alongside of it, just the leaps and bounds in personal growth that you experience is really incredible.
Yes. Okay. Well, I love it. And so I want to ask you some lighter questions here. So I know you have your, this big article about your favorite haunts out in Portland and the places you like out there, and you're welcome to shout them out. But I'm curious. You've said you've spent some time here on the lower seacoast, in Portsmouth, and I'm curious what around here, Kittery, Elliott, and what's your maybe your top 5 favorite spots or where
I
you
got
like
a
to go.
list. I got a list.
Oh,
for
okay.
You.
Giddy
Yeah,
up.
I'm
Giddy
so
up.
ready. I love Maine Meat in Kittery, the butcher shop. They're amazing. They're a whole animal butcher, and very little of the animal when they get it goes to waste. And they source almost entirely from like hyper local farms, and it's a beautiful product. And the owners, shout out guys, hi.
Rook.
They're great. They're just wonderful. And then Anjou, next door to Maine Meat in Kittery is. Oh my God, I like that ramen is just so goddamn good. It's so amazing. I love it. Then there's a little spot across the street called the Corner Pub, which is one of my favorite dives. I think it's so great. It's such a scene on the weekend. I lived in Kittery for a year.
When was this? When
this was 20 to 21 when I was cooking. So
you ever see the Celtics guy at the corner pub in the corner? You'd always be watching the Celtics in the corner pub.
Yes.
Jacob.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I worked there before it changed ownership hands.
Yep.
And then I like picked up a few shifts here and there after it changed ownership. But I just love I love a dive bar. I'm such a sucker for like a tableau of people watching. I love it.
Yeah.
And there's so many like old school shipyard people that go there, and then the sailors, and then like all of the young kind of hipstery kids that are moving into the area. It's just great. And in the summertime, you can have your dogs out on the patio. It's a really nice little spot. And I love the Wilder.
Yeah, the Wilder.
In Portsmouth, they have such a great, strong cocktail program, great vibes, good food. I think the last time I actually like got like drunk was like 4 Halloweens ago there. And I won a costume contest dressed as Mrs. Incredible, and they gave me the medal, and I like did the splits up front in front of everyone.
That's awesome.
I think that might be the last time I actually got like real weird. Yeah. I still have the medal too. I was like, I've never won a costume contest.
Let's go.
Yeah, I really like that. And then there's a spot called Cure that's owned by a woman named Julie, who actually owns an edible company as
Emerald
well.
Elevation, yeah. We've had Julie on the show.
Oh, nice. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, man. They're like trail bars.
Yeah, their trail bars are really good.
It's like problematically good because I want to eat like 4 of them.
Yeah,
and then I would be incapacitated. But she's got a great little thing going with her restaurant as well. It's just a fun little spot. And then
Julie and Darren are just they're awesome people.
They're really good people. They're a riot. And I don't know where they even find the hours in the day, honestly. I really don't. I'm not sure, like, I don't know. Does she teleport? Does she hack the system? Are there
amazing.
4
I'll see her
of her?
like out on the, like out doing like cannabis
kids.
stuff. Yeah, doing the cannabis, 3 kids, I think. Or 2
3
kids. I don't know. I know that they had another kid. Like
2 or 3. There's
2
definitely
or 3.
more than one.
Yeah, I know that she's had one like the last. It was when I was meeting with her. She was like she had like the baby, and she was like meeting with me like 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later. I was like, you're incredible.
It's like that.
Yeah,
That's like
Julie.
it's just in her. Like how hard they work is crazy. And then in Agunquit, Flo's Hot Dogs.
Oh yeah, okay, Flo's, yeah.
It's like the steam hot dog place. I am such a sucker for bits of Americana like that. I'm like obsessed with it. I think it's great. Anytime I have friends visiting and we're like south enough to hit that, I'm like, we got to go get a hot dog, you guys. We need a hot dog from this place. And they're like, what? I'm like, just trust me. It's like we're going to go we're just going to go have a hot dog experience. But I also think that the seacoast is really kind of coming along nicely down here. I think for a long time it was very, very sleepy, and Portsmouth was this insane party town because of the shipyards there.
Yeah.
And now I think it's become a little bit more polished, which has been nice. Like good and bad, obviously.
Good
Gentrification
and bad.
has 2 sides.
It has 2 sides. It's like you said, a lot of the mass people have come up, and
You're the mass people.
Yeah, I'm the mass people. A lot of us have come up, like that's how I'm talking about them, right?
Yeah.
Because I came up, I like to look at myself as like a 2016 mass person, like COVID change for Portsmouth.
You're like,
at
I'm
least.
better than the second wave.
I'm better than the second wave. Yeah, exactly. No, I'm telling you though, it is funky, and it to see in Portsmouth and to see it changing and to talk to people. Portsmouth used to be the murder capital of New Hampshire in the 80s because of the shipyard and because of the sailors, and it was just a big party town. There was there was all these clubs, and it was just more of a seedy place. And then, it's just because of how beautiful the location is, where it is off the Circle of 95, and it's just like literally perfect. The location in 10 minutes from the beach, and right on the water there, the port. Like people are just, it's grown into something to love and hate.
Oh, for sure. Yes, exactly. Also, shout out to the D Street Lounge.
The D Street Lounge is the greatest place on
earth.
earth.
Portsmouth is literally the greatest place on earth.
Yeah.
I'm not I think the best version of Mr. Brightside I've ever heard in my life happened there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure, exactly. Yeah, but you hear it like once a month.
Classic. Again, I'm a sucker for a dive and just like a tableau of people watching depravity. And if you want it, go there.
Yeah, if you want some people watching some giddy up.
Oh yeah, hit it in peak summer. Yeah.
Oh, hit it in peak summer. Talk about fighting back against, what we talked about earlier about COVID. I don't know how they were pulling it off, but everyone else was just like shut down. Needed a vaccine passport
Didn't
to even go into.
Exist in New Hampshire.
Well,
New Hampshire was just like bye.
Not as much, but it did get there a little bit at the end, and D Street just fought back against it and was like, no, we're just gonna fill our bar up every night and just have this people come and sing music and not care. And it was such a place that I love them so much and appreciate them so much. And it's tied into this place here too. They're good people over there. I'm glad that you said that.
You don't get like a good dive bar like that anymore. It's just so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's well done, and like it's such a scene, and like it's crazy there, but you never feel like totally unsafe. It's such a fun spot. Yeah. But like the COVID not existing, I was doing a lot of work inland New Hampshire during that too, and it was wild. Like once you hit a certain point in the state, it was just like everything was normal, and you're like, this is so nice, but so strange. Whoa.
Yeah, inland New Hampshire, I bet, out here, exactly.
Oh,
the
yeah,
seacoast
in real live free or die country, yeah.
Yeah, right. No, that's awesome. And I will say that next time you're, Anjou's great. Next time that you're in Dover, New Hampshire, there's a place called Hong's Ramen, and it's amazing. I love those guys over there. Yeah,
I love a good bowl of ramen.
Yeah, me too, especially in the wintertime, and they're awesome over at Hong's, and you should definitely check them out.
Oh, I'm adding that to the list for sure. That's not that far away either. No. Like Dover and Portsmouth are almost the same.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. Exactly, it's the same. 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, depending on where you are. Okay, Ashlee, well, I'll tell you what, man, I've had an awesome time chatting with you today. I think, the people know where they can find you, right?
Just find me on the Instagram. Don't look me up on Facebook. I won't accept your request.
I love it. Yeah, don't find her on Instagram. She's not covered. Don't find her on Facebook.
Yeah, don't friend request me on Facebook. I'm not answering.
He's not answering those friend requests. Follow the Beer Mama on Instagram. Ashlee, she's you're awesome. I really had an awesome time chatting with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I think that we could, in the future, I'm gonna maybe lean on you and come back, just to bounce some ideas off of you and how we can, fix the system or create a new system that we live in, and
we'll put on our tinfoil hats and brainstorm.
Put on our tinfoil hats. Maybe we have another show called Shut Your Mouth. That's our other program. Maybe we'll bring you back for that one.
Great, perfect.
Giddy up. Well, guys, please check out Ashlee, the Beer Mama. Please always, follow her, like her stuff. Please like my stuff, follow my stuff. Dr. BeeWell, subscribe to Dr. BeeWell, subscribe to Shut Your Mouth. We're building something over here. We appreciate you guys. We love you, and giddy up until next time.